Hello friends, you are listening the Alec Award winner novel The Mysterious Call by author Master Namish Shastri. This book now is also displayed in New Delhi International Book Fair from Feb 10 to 18, 2024. So, if you are interested in hard copy of the mysterious thriller novel, go grab one from the International Book Fair at Pragati Maidan, Delhi. And as always, please like and share this video and do subscribe my channel. Now without further ado, let's hear the next chapter of this award-winning thriller novel in the voice of Richard Carlsen, the protagonist. Enjoy!
The Consignment. London Port was among the busiest ports. It handled containers, timber, paper, vehicles, aggregates, crude oil, petroleum products, liquefied natural gas, coal, metals, grains, and other dry and liquid bulk materials. But today, if something was the center of attraction, then it was salt. The port, bustling with activities even at that morning at 6 a.m., was gossiping about salt and how customs had apprehended an inland waterway boat with drugs, which seemed like salt. I was in the fifth-floor office of the London Port Authority, from where the entire port and the serene Thames could be seen. The ingress and egress of ships and boats looked picturesque from there. "Mr. John," I addressed the short man, dressed formally. He had a short face with beautiful eyes and a walrus mustache. He lacked a beard, and his brows were as black as ebony, but his hair was brown. A bandage on the right cheek testified that he had recently suffered some injury on the face. His rectangular specs indicated that he was not a man of great taste. The person was not interested in talking to me, and was engrossed in something that he had opened on his system computer. The screen had his undivided attention. He was the port in charge of the largest port in the country, if not the world. The port was busy, and even at this morning hour, the hustle and bustle were such that one generally associated with the traffic at the heart of the city at peak time. Many laborers, porters, port staff, marine pilots, etc., were busy with their routines. Everyone was in a steaming hurry. "Mr. John," I said with a harsh tone. Mr. John turned his gaze from the screen towards me and began to recall something. He swiveled in his executive chair and then took off his specs, placing them on the table. The table had nothing but the screen of the system computer and some neatly piled files. "Have we met before?" he asked me, while gently massaging his bandage that occupied a large part of his chin. "No, I guess not," I responded. "How do you know my name, then?" John inquired, displaying such a remarkable scowl as if he had asked a significant cross-question. "Well," I was about to complete the sentence when a familiar voice took over my words. "Because Mr. Richard Carlsen saw your name on the black color board, which had the names of all port in charges." I looked back at Alex. "The reason I relish your company, Alex," I said, and passed on a small laugh. Alex laughed too. John did not understand how two police personnel had arrived in his cabin so unannounced. "We are here to take over the seized boat from customs," Alex said. John was indifferent. He said, "What are you doing here?" John gestured with his hand pointing towards his cabin. "We need some information," I said. "I don't have any information that may interest you," John said. "Well, let us decide that," I responded. John gave a boring stare and started engrossing himself in the computer screen. "This bandage?" I questioned John, when he again gently massaged the wound covered by the bandage on his chin. "Nothing exciting," John responded. "I would like to know," I insisted. "I met with a car accident, a minor one, and this was the result of the same." He responded with a sigh. He wanted to continue, but Alex interrupted. "This boat R-431. "Yes, what about R-431? John asked callously. "Well, Mr. John, you know that this boat is under police seizure. We have found a lot of illegal stuff there," I said harshly. "Yes, I am aware of that, officer," John responded. His approach was lackadaisical. "Then, Mr. John, as port in charge, can you explain why a boat filled with so much illegal contraband substance was anchored at your port?" "Officer Richard," John replied, focusing on my badge and reading my name from there. He continued, "You are aware that I am in charge of this port, and not of boat R-431. Before a boat is docked, I would not know its contents." John took a page from the pile of files on his table and shoved it towards me. John continued, "The declaration stated that boat R-431 has containers of salt from Allen manufacturers. Now, how do I know whether it was salt boxes or drugs? I read the information that the salt boxes were loaded from Grangemouth Port of Scotland, and they were coming to London Port. They were loaded by Allen Manufacturing's factory at Grangemouth and were headed for the warehouse of the same company in London. They were shipped in the boat that belonged to Carlsen Marine and Transport Company, Grangemouth, Scotland." "And now, officers," John said, while Alex and I were reading the information on the page he had given us, "you need to excuse me. A London port in charge can have everything, but what he doesn't possess is brains," I thought to myself. But looking at my facial gestures, Alex understood what I was thinking. "Time," John concluded. I understood that there was nothing that could be extracted from John. I gestured to Alex and said, "Let's go to the pier then." We both left in a jiffy from that room. While we were walking towards the pier, I was engrossed in my own thoughts. If the declaration were to be believed, there were almost 1 million pounds of illegal drugs camouflaged as salt. Last night, I saw 2 dead bodies in Bungalow No. 9, which, as per the security guard of a nearby bungalow, belonged to Johnson Allen. Now I am told that the boat was hired by Allen Manufacturing, whose owner, Johnson Allen, presumably was brutally murdered yesterday. Allen Manufacturing used to manufacture salt, and now there was some process by which drugs were camouflaged as salt. All of these were connecting, and it meant that Johnson Allen was killed because he was involved in a drug racket. That's why Sam Ross gave him the brutal death. Or was it at the order of that unknown boss of the mafia? Was Johnson Allen trying to double-cross the mafia? But how did he manage to get the process of converting drugs into salt? And most importantly, why did customs catch hold of an inland vessel? It was not in their jurisdiction. All these confusions were going on in my head, and I did not realize that I had reached the pier. We had walked almost a kilometer from the Port Authority's office to where R-431 was kept captive. R-431 was a narrow boat, which, in my estimation, was around 7 feet wide and 65 feet long. I could guess that it was a cruiser stern boat. The maximum speed such a boat could achieve was around 14 or 15 knots, and on average, it would be 12 or 13 knots for the journey. That meant if the boat was coming from Grangemouth and reached London Port, it might have taken almost 35 hours or so if they had not stopped anywhere. That meant the boat had started from Grangemouth before the brutal murder of Johnson Allen, presuming one of the deceased last night was Allen. I was doing all these mental calculations when I saw Alex had already embarked upon the boat and was signaling me to come up. I climbed up the 3 small stairs and was on the deck of the boat. I saw one place was marked, and there were 2 customs officials standing. I presumed they were waiting for the local police for the handing over. I and Alex went to them, and they saluted me as the official protocols indicated that I was higher in the hierarchy. "How come customs seized an inland boat coming from Scotland to London?" I inquired. "Sir, we received an order from the Commissioner of London Police," the customs official responded politely. He was in his mid-20s and seemed to have just joined the force. The other was even junior to him. "Mr. Forbes ordered you?" I asked, surprised. "He had received a tip. Someone had to act. The local police were taking time, and thus we acted," the customs official said hurriedly. I was surprised, but I nodded and went on to inspect the boat. Alex got engaged with them to complete the handing over formalities. I noticed that there were huge consignments covered in a thick blue plastic cover. One of the consignments was forced open, meaning that the customs officials might have opened it to check. There were small sachets, and on closer examination they seemed like salt. I opened one sachet and took the white material in my palm. I tasted it, and it was clear that it was not salt. Though the material was giving me a kick, it would be difficult to prove in a court of law that it was any contraband. This meant that the report received by Forbes was not wrong. Someone had done deep research in London's drug mafia, and that Mole had revealed the biggest secrets of this mafia. I strolled further and looked at the huge stock of consignments. I also noticed that there was an empty gun flare. It looked strange to be on that boat. There was a marking as if some dead body had been kept there. I took my cigar and lit it while taking a few strides here and there. The customs officials had gone, and Alex came near me. He accidentally inhaled my cigar's smoke and coughed. I moved in a different direction, not to cause harm to him. "What happened to our guest, whom you followed?" I inquired. "He ran away in some alley. I couldn't find him, so I thought instead of wasting time, I must return," Alex responded. Did you see the salt?" I questioned. "Not yet, but I presume you have seen," Alex replied. Yes, and indeed, whatever was written in that report by that informer of Forbes was right. I presume it is the same informer who informed about this boat. "Yes, Richard. I checked with the customs officials. Last night Forbes received a call." "What time?" I interjected and asked. "Around 3:30 p.m. or so," Alex replied. "Oh," I said, and then went into thought. Was it possible that it was the same girl who called me, who was Forbes's informer? "Forbes informed the customs officials, and then he called you and me to take over the case," Alex continued. As we discussed, a few thud sounds grew louder, and we approached the source of the noise. An old man was spotted climbing the ladder. Alex helped him, and he came up on the boat deck. "Hi, Dr. Jonathan, Chief Scientist of Narcotics Control Dept." He introduced himself, with a small bow and raising his hand for a handshake. I shook his hand and responded, "Richard Carlsen, Senior Police Inspector, London Police. He is Alex, Sub-Inspector, London Police." I pointed towards Alex. Dr. Jonathan coughed a bit. He stood beside me, and I focused on him, an aged person. His bald head had a few white hairs. He moved towards the open box of the consignment and took the sachet just opened by me in his hand. He examined it deeply and then smelled the packet. He handed over the small sachet to Alex to hold, and he took out a test tube from the inner pocket. He allowed a few grams of the contents of the sachet into the test tube. From the inner pocket on the other side of his blazer, he took a dropper and allowed a few drops to fall freely into the test tube. The hazy, white-colored sample had now turned into pure white. He then emptied the content into my palm and said, "Senior Police Inspector Carlsen, can you tell me what this substance is?" I was a bit perplexed. Nevertheless, I smelled it. The smell was odorless and the substance was pure white. It looked like powdered sugar, but I, from my experience, can tell that it was pure cocaine, I answered. "Right. Can you say that with certainty earlier?" Dr. Jonathan questioned. "No, but I can now." "Yes. Now, even if you test it in some lab, it will be proven that it is pure cocaine, and such a huge quantity of cocaine smuggling is illegal, punishable with the severest punishment," Dr. Jonathan concluded. He moved around and looked at the boat all around. He then said, "If this boat was not apprehended, a huge amount of cocaine would have been circulating on the streets of London." "That too, without any risk," I added. "Yes. Can you tell me what kind of liquid you added that converted the salt back into cocaine?" I inquired. "First up, it was not salt. It was pure cocaine which, with the help of the latex of the Lakshmi plant, was disguised as powdered sugar," Dr. Jonathan added. "Lakshmi plant," both Alex and I said in unison. "Yes, and it was not salt but more akin to powdered sugar." "I guess since Allen Manufacturing is registered to manufacture salt, they declared it as salt," I intervened. "Probably," Dr. Jonathan said. He was not much into investigative work. His specialty was hardcore narcotics study. "But what is this Lakshmi plant?" I questioned. "Well, some 2 years ago, Professor Lakshmi Trust of Edinburgh University Dept of Botany did an interesting discovery, and her paper was much appreciated. She discovered that there is this hybridized mutant plant of the Narcissus genus, and its latex can be used as the perfect anesthetic." "We haven't heard about it," I interjected. "Yes," Dr. Jonathan said. "Maybe because Lakshmi Trust was abducted by the Henry Walter gang." "Oh," both Alex and I said in unison. "Yes. And then it seemed that Walter forced Lakshmi to use that plant to camouflage cocaine as powdered sugar," Dr. Jonathan said. Walter was killed in an encounter, I said. Yes, Dr. Jonathan said. And that too by Watson, Alex added. But since then, no one has heard about Professor Lakshmi, Dr. Jonathan said. If I have to summarize, I added, Professor Lakshmi discovered a plant that will help camouflage cocaine as powdered sugar or salt, and then she was abducted by Walter. Walter was killed by Watson in an encounter, and then maybe Sam Ross abducted Professor Lakshmi. Yes, and then Professor Lakshmi was forced by Sam Ross to disguise the salt prepared by Allen Manufacturing, Alex added. Precisely, I said, and continued. For the past 2 years, Johnson Allen was making money because he was helping Sam Ross. Professor Lakshmi was in their confines. Well, officers, these are your domains. I can't add much to it, Dr. Jonathan said. How does this plant look like? I asked. A single flower plant on a long green stalk with green leaves growing from the base of the stem. The flowers have a strange iridescent petal surrounding a trumpet, which has the same iridescence. Lakshmi plants grow between 40 to 50 centimeters tall, Dr. Jonathan described. It looks more like a daffodil then, white petals surrounding a trumpet and 50 centimeters tall. I put across my point of view. Yes, Mr. Carlsen. In fact, a daffodil too belongs to the Narcissus genus. It also has properties of trance, Dr. Jonathan added. Now the picture was clear. The plant that I saw last night at bungalow number 9 was the Lakshmi plant. It appeared to have white petal daffodil, but in fact, it had iridescent colored petals. If I may ask for the liquid in that bottle, which you used to convert the salt back to the drug, I said with childlike anxiousness. Mr. Carlsen, that is nothing but the crushed flower of the Lakshmi plant, which undoes the impact of its latex, Dr. Jonathan said. The process then is to use the latex of the Lakshmi plant, and then the cocaine would be disguised as salt, and to undo it, use the flower juice of the same plant. Alex intervened. Well, in theory, yes, but it requires a huge processing. Yes, for a small quantity, you can convert it back by mixing it with flower juice, but to camouflage large quantities, you need a large factory, Dr. Jonathan said. More so, there are other parameters, right pressure, right temperature, maybe some catalyst chemicals, etc., I added. Yes, Mr. Carlsen, Dr. Jonathan said. The picture was clear now in my mind. Johnson Allen and Sam Ross were hand in gloves. Lakshmi Trust was abducted, and she was forced to help disguise cocaine as salt. Allen Manufacturing was sending that salt-looking cocaine, and the police were not in a position to catch hold because no one could prove it was cocaine. Thus, in the past 2 years, all was going great. But then that mysterious informer of Forbes informed Forbes a few days back about this salt-like drug, and then also gave information about a truck. Alex caught hold, and then Sam Ross and the London mafia sent the goods through a boat. But now the boat also was apprehended. Was that mysterious girl I met in bungalow number 9 the informant? Who was that girl who opened the door? I clearly remember each and every detail of her. I must make a move, Dr. Jonathan said. His voice disturbed my thought process. Yes, sure, Dr. Jonathan, I said. You were of great help. Can I take that bottle from you? I insisted. Dr. Jonathan gave me the small bottle which had a little liquid left. He then waved his hands and left the boat carefully. The customs officials standing down at the dock helped the old sexagenarian Dr. Jonathan, and he left the scene. Alex, what information have you gathered about the crew of the boat? I asked. Well, it seems there were 3 of them on the boat. As soon as customs announced around 4 a.m. that they were under seizure, one of them fired a flare and jumped into the Thames. What a daredevil. But why did he fire the gunshot for the flare? Generally, it is done to give some signals, I said. Difficult to tell right now, but he jumped and swam and somehow could not be caught. Oh, so one of the 3 accused left. What about the other 2? Another one tried to jump, but it seems he didn't know how to swim and in his anxiety drowned. He died a painful death. That's strange. A boat crew did not know how to swim, I said with a suspicious tone. Maybe he was a last-minute addition. The 3rd also chickened out, looking at the painful death of his colleague and better thought to surrender to customs. Oh, so he is in customs custody. Now hand it over to us. Then let's find out what he knows. You bring him here, I ordered. Sure, Alex said, and left. He gestured to the customs officials, and through sign language told them that the accused who was caught was summoned by me at the boat deck. They gestured, saying they would bring him soon. I was just wondering about the new discoveries and how everything was connected. It was a coincidence that Forbes gave me this new case, but it was so well connected with Bungalow Number 9. It seemed that Johnson Allen and Sam Ross developed some kind of friction leading to the murder. But then, who was that lady? Was she Lakshmi Trust? But why would Sam Ross kill both Johnson Allen and Lakshmi Trust? Furthermore, where was Watson? It was highly unlikely that Watson was abducted for more than 8 hours now, and there was no news of him. I was wondering whether Watson was alive, or the brutal mafia had. Then I mentally decided not to let such negative thoughts cloud my mind. The biggest enemy of any detective was fear. Fear clouds your judgment. Detectives had to remain objective and verify each fact, and not conclude anything or rule out any possible scenario. My thoughts were disturbed by the small thuds. The person who was arrested in handcuffs was brought to the boat, and the constable of customs was holding the rope. Alex said he was arrested. He was the third person. One fled, one dead, he remained. I looked at the person. He was extremely skinny, hardly covered in a thin pant and shirt, despite October's cruelly cold temperatures, and he had made a long boat journey over the North Sea and the River Thames. "What is your name?" I shouted. "Vid," he said, almost bleeding. "David, is it?" I barked. He nodded. He was trembling with fear or maybe cold. I was not sure. He had spent almost 1.5 days at sea in that narrow boat with such thinly clad clothes. "You work with which gang? Who gave you these drugs?" I shouted. He was silent. He didn't answer. "Speak up!" I shouted as furiously as I could. He was unmoved. He was not willing to say anything. "You speak, else," Alex said, and handed him a tight slap. I was shocked, but I kept mum. David was injured by that slap, but he still was not willing to say anything. "You either speak, or else we have to be extremely brutal," I said. "I don't know anything," David finally said. "So you could speak. I thought for a moment you were dumb," I mockingly said. He did not respond. He was standing, keeping his gaze down to earth. "Why did you 3 try to escape, if you had done no wrong?" I inquired. "Sir, we got scared," David replied. "But why?" "Sir, we thought that customs would arrest us. We didn't have any permit. Nobody told us that customs would be there." "For this small thing, a fellow of yours would jump in the Thames and willingly take such a painful death," I shouted. "You liar!" Alex slapped him again. David got a cut on his lips, and it was bleeding, but he did not say anything. "Okay, Alex, he is of no use. You throw him in the Thames. I guess there is no record of his arrest," I said, looking at Alex in a high tone. David was overhearing me, but was not reacting. "We have made no record yet," Alex responded. "Good. Throw him in the water if need be, shoot 2 or 3 bullets. Rather ask the customs fellow to shoot bullets. Show that he tried to escape and got killed," I concluded, and started descending from the boat. Alex took out his Beretta M 1951 pistol and gestured to the police constable. The constable dragged David with the help of the rope, and soon David was on the verge of the deck. The constable then got hold of his legs and was about to lift. "What are you doing?" David shouted. "Just easing your misery," Alex responded. "No, please," David pleaded. "Well, you are of no help, and keeping you alive doesn't serve our purpose. Too much paperwork," Alex said. The constable was trying hard to throw David into the Thames. Alex also reached to help. Alex was a stout person, and in no time he had taken skinny David in his lap. Alex was about to throw David into the Thames. "Wait, please wait!" David shouted. He was perspiring like anything. His blood pressure might have shot up. Alex waited for a minute. David was panting. I knew how much it would take for David to finally break, and thus I was already climbing the stairs to reach the deck of the boat. I saw Alex and the customs constable standing near David, and he was sweating and panting. I don't have time, I barked. Sir, I don't know much. Only that we were told to carry this salt consignment from Grangemouth to London Port, David said while still panting. Then why did you run away? I inquired. Sir, I am not much aware, but our captain who was in control of everything. He jumped in the river and ran away. He also fired the flare gun, maybe to indicate that he was in danger. You weren't aware of anything? I questioned. No, sir. I and that other colleague, we both didn't know anything. The captain ran, so my partner also thought to run away as he was scared. I also wanted to run away, but I don't know how to swim and thus got arrested, David said. He was now breathing almost normally. Alex wanted to slap him again, but I gestured not to. Alex stopped. I left the boat and gestured Alex to follow me. Alex followed. David was in custody of that constable, and both of them were at the boat deck. I descended down along with Alex. He doesn't know much. He is stating the truth, I said. Okay, sir. Then what is the plan? Alex asked. Nothing. We can't do much here. Take the boat, the goods, and this David in custody. Ask someone from the team to do the paperwork. But Allen Manufacturing's lawyer will easily come and get these goods and David released. We can't prove these are contraband, Alex inquired. I know. We will find out some solution. But for now, let's proceed on the assumption that the entire consignment is cocaine or other contraband, I firmly said. Okay, sir, Alex responded. Nah. I'll leave for home and you take care of things here, I said. No, sir, I will drop you. The killer is at large, Alex said. But here the formalities. Before I could complete the sentence, Alex said, The customs officials are my friends. They can manage for some time. I will drop you home, come back, and complete formalities. Okay. Alex went up to the boat, said something to the constable there, and then he rushed to the customs office at the London port, and in some time he came back. We both then reached the parked Astra outside the port. Our killer guest was not to be seen, nor his orange Ford Fiesta. Alex dropped me home, and he did not leave until Emily, my wife, opened the door and took me in.